so good to be here. It's such a privilege and a pleasure to have a packed room full of people who are already so engaged and involved in the processes since the morning. I'll really, my job is to kickstart this session, and I'm keenly awaiting the five uh, participating organizations who will come after this. But just to lay the ground, I wanted to uh, quickly take you through some of the issues surrounding adolescents and their mental health in today's world. Adolescence is an age which can be, at once perplexing and exciting, isn't it? I mean, uh, it can, at the same time confuse us and make us wonder what this is about. And yet at the same time, it brings so many myriads of possibilities and hope. Hope that this generation will begin to mend some of the damage that we have done to our world. Yeah. So, this dynamic phase, the definition of which has also been, controversial. It's no longer the teenage years, certainly not, and we now know that adolescence actually, starts at about 10 and goes on to 25. And there's enough evidence, both from a neurodevelopmental perspective, where you have changes in the brain structure, in hormones, in sexuality, and what have you. And also, equally, and perhaps even more importantly in today's day, is the psychosocial and cultural impact and the changes that you see in this context, and whether that is, the stress of growing up or the education system that we live in, and the social media. It's about, as Kavita was talking about, the uh, new and emerging identities in the LGBTQ space. It could be to do with climate change and so many other things that are constantly changing in our world today. So all of this tells us that actually adolescence is much more prolonged than we once uh, believed it was. And it's not surprisingly, as a result of which, there's a sharp spike in the mental health challenges in our young people. Uh, it's estimated that around 30% of them actually may have diagnosable mental health condition. Um, and Within which, of course, we have also seen a sharp rise in depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and suicide, especially after COVID. So there's a marked change out there. Um, and of course, it's humbling and in a way uh, revealing to know that 50% of all mental health disorders, so to say, start before the age of 18, and 75% of them start before the age of 25. So you can imagine the opportunity that we have of actually addressing it early so that these do not become lifelong problems. And then the mental health challenges, as we know, is perhaps one of the things that create all sorts of burdens and challenges for our world today. Uh, if we are to, of course, I mean, I think Prabha was talking about the suicide in young mothers. The suicide in adolescence is perhaps as alarming, if not more. It is the number one cause of death in our country, in the youth. Um, every hour, perhaps there is a suicide by a young person. So it is by far the most common cause of death in this age group. Um, and of course, the impact of this is wide and long lasting. Now, if we want to believe that this is going to get sorted by a biomedical model, and which is led by experts, then I think we have already missed the bus, because this is a model that has been tried and tested. I mean, huge amount of resources has been pooled into the mental health space in resourceful countries. And what we have found, that despite the expert-driven model, the rates of depression, suicide, and the mental health burden has only increased. So here I think we need to have a very different understanding and approach to mental health and what we call the developmental model. Some others call it the evolutionary model, where we are looking at trajectories and determinants of what eventually causes the mental health problems. And which are the spaces that we can actually look where we find these trajectories developing and growing. Again, I'm going to refer to what Prabha was talking about first thing in the morning is about maternal health. It could be to do with early education. It could be to do with attachment and bonding. It could be to do with the LGBTQ community, abuse, the othering that happens due to race, religion, caste, all of that. And once we begin to look into that, then we realize that there are many things that can be done much before it eventually comes to this position where we are dealing with a very serious mental health challenge. Again, just to give you another lens to look at it from. I mean, if we see if we calculate from the from the kind of 30% of mental health problems that the WHO kind of proposes, even if we take a watered down moderate estimate of it, let's say 20% of them, right? And if we calculate the youth, which is 50% of our population, then it amounts to 140 million young people having some kind of mental health challenges. And if we are thinking of actually producing that many psychiatrists and psychologists, we are done for. I mean, it's impossible, absolutely. So to look at this more closely, we have to partner with, we have to bring on board all the organizations that we have today. We have to partner with young people who perhaps know much more about their own mental health challenges that we as experts do. So we're really looking at a model where we are trying to identify and look at developments and trajectories that eventually lead up to the mental health crises and try and solve for them in those spaces. Yeah. And that's why it's so exciting to have all these organizations. That is where the intersectoral, concept comes alive. It therefore becomes absolutely essential for us to look through their lenses to see what knowledge they bring, the young people and the organizations that work with them, and have a close look at their inner world and their experiences of life around them. And for that, we today have 5 very exciting organizations joining us to highlight it, and I'm going to introduce them very briefly, very quickly. So we have Salam Bala Trust, which focuses on building resilience and providing trauma-informed care to adolescents who have experienced adversity. They use a holistic approach, integrating theatre, sports, and therapy to address emotional and behavioral issues in a care setting. Then we have Sneha, who work in urban low-income communities of Mumbai, applying a public health, gender, and rights lens. They use a relational care model to identify distress early and provide non-biomedical support. We have Ekjut, who use a community-rooted approach to adolescent mental health in rural and tribal areas. Their Sukh Dukh Sathis model uses peer supporters within youth groups to address mental health distress through local and non-clinical language. Simha strengthens mental health within public education systems by using a whole school approach. They collaborate with ministries of health and education to institutionalize mental health policies and practices. Youth Ki Awaaz focuses on how adolescents use digital platforms in AI for mental health support. They use data and insights from surveys with adolescents to shed light on online help-seeking behaviors and language they use. So I'm really excited to invite the organizations, and most excited that all of them have brought with them a young person who has made this journey in different spaces and experienced perhaps some mental health challenges or have learned from the kind of work the organizations do in their own unique spaces. So can I have these organizations come up now?
I think the conversations that we've had earlier have really set the context for the work that we do. And this is going to be a bit of an extempore for us because we wanted to keep it a little bit open-ended as well. But I will introduce the work that Simha does to talk a little bit more about the whole school approach. And then I would invite Tanjul, who has worked with us in one of our programs, to talk about what young people really need and what it is that we might be missing out on and we need to look at. So, SIMHA stands for the School Initiative for Mental Health Advocacy. We are a field action project at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. And our focus has largely been on contextualizing WHO's whole school approach model in the context of India. Um, so, something that we hold very dear to us is that we love fighting uphill battles, even though sometimes they get very, very tiring, which is why I think advocacy with public sector as well as private sector organizations is something that we are very, very keen on. We bring a strengths-based approach and a system strengthening approach. So our idea is not to reinvent the wheel. It's more so to collaborate with the government, to collaborate with private organizations, individuals working in the field of child and adolescent well-being to actually strengthen the existing systems that are there. And one thing that I speak about a lot is that I think India has had a history of having great policies and programs being designed. I think it's when we talk about its translation into the real world is where we also face a lot of challenges. We have a diverse population, we have a very rich history, and we also have young people living in very different sort of communities and even margins of society. So the question also really becomes how do we help all of them the best that we can, which is why our work and our focus always has been to collaborate with the government as much as possible because there are existing programs like RKSK, RBSK, the School Health and Wellness Program, which can already be places for support, especially for young people who are working, who are a part of these schools in the public education system. Um, the other idea that we very strongly believe in is that there's a lot of resources that are available. The question really becomes how do we break the silos that we are in at? And I think it has been brought up in our conversations before as well. Because I was recently also at this forum for teacher training, and there was somebody who was leading an organization that also works on mental health. And there was this question that they brought up. They said that, the pie is reducing. And that sort of stuck with me, not in a way where I was thinking about, like they were referring to funding and donors and the fact that so many people want to work on things that already are existing in the system. But I was also wondering that, I think if you look at it, the pie is actually really huge. Um, it's expanded quite a bit, exactly. I think the issue is that we have our pieces and we don't really want to share sometimes. And I think that becomes a problem, especially when you look at the fact that accessibility becomes a concern, resource sharing becomes a concern. Two people might be doing the exact same program, but they still can't share what they're doing because of IPR, because of certain constraints. And that's why I think we really push for these collaborative efforts that we don't want to gatekeep resources. We don't want to gatekeep knowledge. And we want to center young people and the needs that they have and build from there. So I think that's something that sort of really stuck with me. And I really hope that that's also one of the hopes that I have from this alliance, that it doesn't stop in this room, that there are conversations around all of these systems that already exist, like Dr. Sen mentioned, the schools that we've come from, the colleges that we go to, the workplaces that we have, it's all cross-sectoral. So how is it that we can layer these systems already so that they become sustainable ecosystems of care? Um, with that, I will hand it over to Tanjul to talk a little bit about what their experience was as a young person working in one of our programs, which we had launched 2 years ago, which was focusing on actually building champions of mental health amongst college going students in India. So, yeah, over to you, Tanjul.
Thank you. And I completely agree with a lot of the things that are being mentioned here and talked about. And when it comes to imagining the pie, I feel like as young people, we look up and we have so much hope. But as we grow up and we hear, oh, it is what it is, beta, the complaining of that's unfair is met with it is what it is, and that sort of squashes that hope. And with the well-being ambassador program, I was given an opportunity to have a needs assessment program be done in my college, that was for the students by the students, which was different for me because I have been hearing it is what it is throughout my life, which is where this idea of power comes through. As we grow up, we have multiple stakeholders in our life. We live and we grow up in systems, and there's a lot of times that we don't feel that we have power because even we are all doing life for the first time, right? All of us in this room are doing life for the first time ever. And as you grow up, you hear a lot of chatter, a lot of wisdom, which is helpful, but more often than not, it is based on a template that existed some time ago. And as times change, as our language also changes, as Gen Z language is becoming the punchline, but it is the truth that times have changed, the way that we imagine power has changed and it is getting decentralized, but the tussle remains with our stakeholders, with that being our family, that being our teachers in schools and professors in colleges. And that tussle oftentimes is the problem. But what happens with, and I have some points noted down here, is that we have all of these resources, we put counselors in these systems, but then they also become vessels of power. They replicate that. They sort of check your attendance, there's micromanagement, and they become the voice for the institution rather than becoming the voice for the student themselves. So there's constant monitoring, there's surveillance in schools and colleges, and that is supposedly supposed to help our mental health and make us happier. But that's also taking away that power from us. And what was said by, I think, we talked about inclusion and belongingness. And I think that was such an interesting point to bring in because we talk about making inclusive systems, that we'll do this, this, that, and then we'll say, oh, you're welcome here. But we don't talk about creating vessels of safety. We use the word safe space so much, we forget to ask what does safety look like for you, bacha. We forget to ask how can we support you? How can we care for you? And what care do you even want? Because a sermon on how to do this thing seems caring from the adult, but oftentimes then not, that adds to the chatter and makes us lose that power. And that's why, from a space of, yes, we need inclusivity, but we also need belongingness, where it's not about you're welcome here, it's also that you are one of us, you matter, you have a voice, you have influence. And that, I think, is the big change maker. So let's not do mental health workshops for school students and college students during their lunch hour. I don't think that's what we're asking for, but maybe involve them. And instead of doing 2 weeks of orientation where they're just talking about, oh, what is this organization, what best practices for this organization are, let's ask, what are your expectations here? How can we make it a happier campus for you to thrive in, to be welcomed into the forest? That is the metaphor that we're using. So, and all of this actually rests on the fulcrum of intersectionality, because even so you talked about we've missed the bus, but what if the bus does not exist? What if the bus does not even reach that place? So it looks very different. And there's no one size fits all. And that's what we are realizing, that yes, we need the campus to be a vessel of safety, a vessel of care, a vessel of belongingness, and also at times just a space for us to seek help. Because even though we have been doing this for so long, why are people still not seeking help? Where are we going wrong? Because that safety and belongingness is not there, and we don't need one person to be the champion of care or champion of mental health. We need all of us to be champions of mental health. And that's where peer support comes in. That's where community building comes in. And more than anything, we need community, because there's so many problems of just isolation and feeling helpless and powerless. And that is what I rest my discussion on. But yeah, agreed.
सो थैंक यू वेरी मच एंड सभी को जोहार. मेरा नाम डॉक्टर सचिन है एंड आई रिप्रेजेंट एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कॉल्ड एकजुट. एकजुट मीन्स टुगेदरनेस इन मल्टीपल इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस. और एकजुट का जो फिलोसॉफी है इज़ लाइक नथिंग अबाउट अस विदाउट अस. तो और जो कम्युनिटी के साथ हम काम करते हैं, पार्टनरिंग कम्युनिटी के साथ, इट इज़ मोस्टली रूरल एंड आदिवासी कम्युनिटीज़ एंड वी आर फ्रॉम झारखंड. सो मेरे साथी है बीर सिंह, वो भी झारखंड से आए हैं, फर्स्ट टाइम आए हैं. और जब हम यूथ मेंटल हेल्थ का, एडोलसेंट मेंटल हेल्थ का बोलते, WHO यूनिसेफ सेज कि नाउ यूज़ मोर यंग पर्सन, यंग पीपल देन एडोलसेंट. सो तब उनकी भाषा क्या है उसको जानना बहुत ज़रूरी है. सो व्हेन वी स्टार्टेड वर्किंग इन मेंटल हेल्थ, so what is the language adolescents and young people speaks? and प्रॉब्लम ऐसा है कि जस्ट पहले लोग पागल बोलते थे, बीमार बोलते थे, और अभी साइकेट्रिस्ट लोग, मेंटल हेल्थ फील्ड के लोगों ने सोचा कि इसको हिंदी में मानसिक बोल देंगे तो स्टिग्मा कम हो जाएगा. बट व्हेन यू आस्क इन कम्युनिटी की मानसिक, वो समझते कि हमको उल्लू बनाए हैं, पागल को अभी वो मानसिक बोल रहे हैं, बट इट इज़ सेम. सो वी हैव टू बी वेरी केयरफुल जब हम ट्रांसलेट करते हैं. तो ट्रांसलेशन किस तरह से होना चाहिए, कैसे होना चाहिए, बहुत ज़रूरी है. तो मैं ज़्यादा बात नहीं करूँगा, मैं बीर सिंह से ही पूछूँगा, बीर सिंह के ही अनुभव शेयर करूँगा. और बीर सिंह रिलैक्स, सब अपने ही लोग हैं, तो घबराना नहीं है. और तुम बहुत अच्छा बीर सिंह काम करते हैं कम्युनिटी के साथ एज अ यूथ लीडर, और कम्युनिटी उनको सुख दुख साथी बुलाती है क्योंकि वो उनका सुख दुख का बात शेयर करते हैं. तो बीर सिंह, आपका जो मन स्वास्थ्य का जो अनुभव जो है वो थोड़ा सबके सामने बताइए. शुरू आपका परिचय से करिए.
सभी को जोहार. मैं बीर सिंह मुंडरी, पश्चिम सिंहभूम, झारखंड हो आदिवासी समुदाय से हूँ. ये मानसिक स्वास्थ्य जो है इसके बारे में पहले नहीं जानते थे. जब मैं 10वीं क्लास में था उस समय 5 अगस्त से लेकर 14 जनवरी तक जो है मैं मन समस्या से काफ़ी परेशान था. एकजुट जो है 3 साल से किशोर किशोरियों के साथ सामान्य मानसिक स्वास्थ्य पर काम कर रहे हैं. जब उसमें हम भी जुड़े हैं तो मुझे पता चला कि हाँ, मेरे साथ भी ऐसा हुआ था. अभी किशोर किशोरियों के साथ भी हम लोग काम करते हैं या बातचीत करते हैं तो वो अपना मन की बातें बताते हैं कि उनकी क्या इच्छाएं हैं. बहुत सारी किशोर किशोरियाँ जो हैं वो बोलते हैं कि हमको घूमने का, दोस्तों के साथ घूमने का मन करता है, खेल कूद, नाच गान, पर्व त्यौहार, मेलाओं में पार्टी सार्टी नाच करना मन करता है. और वो जो है तनाव या डिप्रेशन नहीं बोलते हैं. अब वो अपना भाषा में सरल शब्द में वो बोलते हैं दुखु उड़ू मन दुखु बोलते हैं. और उनकी वो जो हैं, मुझे उनकी बातें अभी भी याद है. कई किशोर किशोरियों ने बताया था, जब मुझे अपने घरों में दबाव दिया जाता है या डांटते हैं, पीटते हैं, तो हमको अपना मन का गुस्सा जो है अपने दीवारों पर मुक्का मार करके हम दिखाते हैं, या जंगल जा कर के आत्महत्या का ख्याल आता है, कहीं भी जाने का मन करता है, इस तरह से लोग बोलते हैं. और बड़ी भावनाओं से कैसे बड़ी भावनाओं से कैसे हमारे शरीरों पर असर होता है उसके बारे में सीखें, और उनको कैसे शांत करना है, कैसे काम करना है, उसको हम लोग सांस की गतिविधि द्वारा सीखें। और छोटी बड़ी सपने जो हैं या काम जो हैं, छोटी बड़ी काम जो हैं उसको कैसे पूरा करना है, अपना लक्ष्य को कैसे पूरा करना है, उसको हम लोग सीधी गतिविधि द्वारा बांटना सीखें। और एक किशोरी ने बताई थी कि टीचर्स के डर से मैं स्कूल नहीं जा रही थी, इसके लिए मैंने अपने दादी का मदद ली और मैं स्कूल जा रहा हूँ। इस तरह से हम लोग जो हैं माता पिताओं देखभाल करता जो है उनके साथ भी हम लोग बातचीत करते हैं, और वो लोग एहसास करते हैं, और अपने किशोर किशोरी जो है उनको वो लोग समझते हैं और देखते हैं। और साथ ही साथ वो लोग बोलते हैं कि किशोर किशोरी सभी लोग बोलते हैं कि ये बैठक ये बातचीत जो है यही हमारे लिए एक मन का बात रखने का जगह है, और दुख सुख साथी जो है वो हमारी बातों को समझते हैं, समझते हैं, मदद करते हैं। और मुझे हाँ, किशोर किशोरी सभी लोग मुझे बोलते हैं डीजे वाला, नाटक वाला, हाथी वाला, इस तरह से वो लोग बोलते हैं।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। तो बीर सिंह जो है अ, मतलब बहुत से पेरेंट्स केयर गिवर्स बोलते कि बीर सिंह तुम बात कर लो हमारे किशोर से, बच्चे से, क्योंकि वो हमसे नहीं खुलते, तुमसे खुलते। और जब ग्रुप में बैठते हैं तो जो है कि नथिंग अबाउट अस विदाउट अस। सो व्हेन वी स्टार्टेड डेवलपिंग दिस इंटरवेंशंस, तो पहला हमारा काम था कि समुदाय किस भाषा में, इडियम्स ऑफ डिस्ट्रेस जिसको बोलते हैं, किस भाषा में बात करते हैं, किस भाषा में बोलते हैं, किसका मदद लेना चाहते हैं। सो वी आस्क्ड adolescents and young people whom you want to से सीक केयर। सो उन्होंने बहुत अच्छा बताया कि हमारे दोस्त लोग नहीं समझ पाएंगे हमारी भाषा, हमको थोड़ा और बहुत ज़्यादा उम्र के लोग हैं तो भी नहीं पाएंगे, तो थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा 4-5 साल बड़े, तो दे आर अवर सुख दुख साथी, दे आर अवर पीयर फैसिलिटेटर्स हु कंडक्टेड दिस मीटिंग्स। और एक बहुत बड़ा सवाल आता है प्राइवेसी कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी का, कि जब आप एक ओपन फोरम में ये मीटिंग करते हैं गांव में पेड़ के नीचे, तो क्या होता है, तो इसके बारे में भी बहुत सा उनसे बात हुआ। तो बट दे से कि नहीं, हम एक में का मदद लेंगे तो ज़्यादा उसमें हम सीख पाएंगे, ज़्यादा हम अच्छे से मदद ले पाएंगे। एंड एज इट इज़ राइटली मेंशन कि इट इज़ मोर ऑफ अ डेवलपमेंटल इशूज, सोशल इशूज। सो काफ़ी ज़्यादा इंटरसेक्टोरल कोलैबोरेशन, मेजॉरिटी अभी सुबह बात हो रहा था, आई कम्प्लीटली एग्री, स्कूल्स आर द वेरी मच सिस्टम की जिसमें हमको काम करना चाहिए। But when we started working with young people, first survey we did and we found out that in West Singam in our area, more than 53% adolescents are out of schools. So majority लोगों, और कोविड के बाद ये स्थिति और ख़राब हो गया है। So that's why whole of our interventions is a community based, or school re-enrollment is a part of intervention. So it is a part of interventions, and how these multi-sectoral like mainly familial relationships जो बाकी सोसाइटियल स्ट्रक्चर्स है उसको कैसे ले जाए, और जो गवर्नमेंट के सिस्टम्स है थ्रू आरकेएस के एंड चाइल्ड लाइन्स उसके साथ कैसे जुड़े, तो ये सबको मिला के वी वांट टू ट्राई। एंड व्हेन मतलब है कि किसी को समस्या है कि नहीं, वी हैव नॉट आल्सो नॉट टू ट्रिविलाइज दिस मेंटल हेल्थ इशू। सो वी नीड टूल्स, तो जो ग्लोबली रिकॉग्नाइज टूल्स है, चाहे वो पीएचक्यू हो, जीएडी हो, उसको लिटरल ट्रांसलेशन न करके कैसे हम हमारी भाषा में वैलिडेट किया जाए। तो इट इज़ द फर्स्ट टाइम वी वैलिडेटेड दिस टूल्स इन द होल लैंग्वेज, एंड हो कम्युनिटी इज़ लाइक अ 2 मिलियन उनका पॉपुलेशन है, तो इट इज़ नॉट अ स्मॉल कम्युनिटी। So all our interventions are based on with evidence and developed and rooted in the cultural context. So that is very important in time. So बीर सिंह, थोड़ा सा एज अ यूथ, तुम भी युवाओं के प्रतिनिधि हो, तो युवाओं की क्या आकांक्षा है, जो झारखंड का यूथ है वो क्या करना चाहता है, क्या बोलना चाहता है, उसके बारे में भी थोड़ा ये दिल्ली के लोगों को बता दो।
जी हाँ, जिस प्रकार किशोर किशोरियों की आकांक्षाएँ हैं, इच्छाएँ हैं, उसी प्रकार हमारे यूथ जो हैं उनका भी सपने हैं, बहुत सारे सपने हैं। बहुत सारे यूथ जो हैं वो सोचते हैं कि अपनी गरीबी को, अपने घर की परिस्थिति को सुधारने के लिए कुछ अच्छा करें, उनका सपने रहते हैं, लेकिन वो सब पूरा नहीं हो पाता है, क्योंकि सपोर्ट नहीं मिल पाता है, घर में बहुत ज़्यादा ज़िम्मेदार होता है। और बहुत सारे यूथ जो हैं या युवतियों जो हैं, वो लोग जो हैं माने पेट दर्द से, माहवारी जो हम लोग बोलते हैं, उससे माने परेशान होते हैं, तो वो लोग गलत कदम उठाने के लिए वो लोग सोचते हैं, और ये जवान लोग या कि यूथ जो लोग जो हैं वो लोग आत्महत्या या दुर्घटना से या नशापान से वो लोग अपने आप को खो देते हैं।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मुझे लगता है हमारा समय हो गया, लेकिन हो समुदाय में और झारखंड में कोई भी प्रोग्राम बिना गीत, बिना म्यूज़िक के नहीं होता है। और मैं वीर सिंह से रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा कि आधा मिनट के लिए अपना म्यूज़िक, अपना टैलेंट
Good morning, everyone. We are here on behalf of Salam Balak Trust, an organization that has been working with street and working children in Delhi NCR since 1988. So, our story began with a simple but powerful mission. In early years, we thought that meeting basic needs like food, shelter, education would be enough. But soon we realized something deeper. Our children were still not happy. They carried invisible wounds of trauma, abuse, neglect. And that is when the idea of a mental health program came in 2003. So basically, the mental health program shifted our approach completely. Instead of waiting for crisis, we built this preventive mental health care inside our shelters. We focused on identifying issues, and like many others, we also followed a clinical traditional model. But our children needed more than just clinical solutions. They needed preventive, holistic approaches. So, almost 20 years ago, we started shaping our own model. Even though during that time we didn't have a set example to follow, we adopted a cross sectoral approach. We introduced life skill education for our children in 2004. In the following year, we then introduced special education for our children with special needs, and later career counseling for our children who turned 16, so that they know what they have to do in their future and they have some roadmap. So, what worked for us over the years? I would say uh, preventive approaches and creative expressions. For example, a boy who once refused to speak found his voice through a theater group, and a girl struggling with aggression found calm through painting. So basically, we brought together education, sports, performing arts, theater, therapy under one umbrella. And slowly, mental health became not just a department, but something intertwined into the entire organization. And I would say very proudly that today mental health in Salam Balak stands alongside with education, sports, and physical health as a core pillar. And this preventive approaches and holistic approaches has helped us build resilience in our children, gave them a sense of belonging and hope. And our work does not stop at 18. Once our children turn 18 and step out from their centers to rebuild their life, we continue to work alongside them. And one such alumni is with us, Rekha. So I would ask Rekha to share her journey and little bit about her childhood and how she came to Salam Balak Trust.
Hi everyone, my name is Rekha. So I came to Salam Balak Trust in 2012. Before Salam Balak Trust, I was living in a different NGO where I lived. Like by the NGO, I was actually rescued from a family. I was working as a domestic worker. Since I had a very troubled childhood, I financially my family was struggling financially. So one of my aunt actually sent me to Delhi to work at a very early age of 6 or 7. I had no idea about anything. I thought Delhi is a different country that time. So when I came to Delhi, I had no idea what's going on in the world and where my mother is, where my other families, my siblings are. So with the help of that NGO, I was rescued and was given formal education. But unfortunately, I had to leave that NGO because it was only till 8th standard, and after 8th, I had nowhere to go. I was I was blank. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to live education because I know what happens if I don't get educated. I don't want to go back to my village and be the same. So I went to we went to child CWC and asked for help. So CWC sent us, me and my other friend, to Salam Balak Trust. When I first came to Salam Balak Trust, it was a very strange experience for me because it was a very different environment from the other NGO. I was surprised to see that uh, there are so many staff members working for children in Salam Balak Trust, and I was very surprised to see the mental health program actually, because before that I had never heard about mental health program. I had very negative views about mental health. I thought, okay, if you go for mental health or counseling, you have some problem and you will be treated differently. But it was surprising to see that it was very normalized in Salam Balak Trust. Every child was doing that, and it was mandatory for everyone. And everyone was doing once in a week or month. So it was very normalized. So I was like, okay, I'll also try once and go talk about it. So slowly I started trusting it. I started my counseling with Shikhadi and a few counselor who used to come there for volunteering. So I sat with one of the volunteer and then started talking about. I was like, let me test them what they're talking about. So I she asked me some questions. So I was just challenging. I was like, अच्छा ठीक है, आप बताओ क्या होता है ये, ऐसे क्या होता है. I was just making fun. I don't know. I was young, so I was like, पता नहीं क्या होगा अभी. So she was just smiling and sitting there. She just let me talk. So I started talking about my childhood and how I feel. So I धीरे धीरे ऐसे 2-3 दिन हुआ तो I started feeling थोड़ा interested कि अच्छा ठीक है, let me go. There's no harm. No one is listening to me or anything. So I started talking to her. I talked about my childhood. I said, "Acha, I had this and that, and I feel this certain way." So धीरे धीरे I realized that I was talking about things I never talked, like about my abuses I faced when I was a child, and the feelings of abandonment or anxiety or trust issues. I had I had very big issue. I was not able to trust people. I was facing a problem with connection or building relationships, even with friends. I was like, okay, they are just being friendly ऐसे दो कुछ time के लिए, then they will leave me. Then I realized that all these things, मतलब I had anger issues. All these issues were happening because I never talked about my feelings. So yeah, so then I started my counseling seriously, and I talked to Shikhadi and I said, okay, I want to do that. It is helping me. So yeah, this is my journey with Salam Balak Trust. Yeah.
Yeah. So Rekha, if you remember, yeah. So what were some of the challenges you faced as an adolescent?
As an adolescent, actually, like when I was in NGO, these were the only challenges I faced. I think the main challenge I faced when I started going to college. So after completing my schooling, I was very serious about education because I knew that if I don't get educated, there will be no future for me. So the education was the first thing. I was like, okay, I can stay here even if I don't like the environment. I can stay here and complete my education. So after completing the schooling, I got a scholarship from Vahani. Then I started going to college. So since I was getting a scholarship, I went to a private college, and I was scared of going there because I used to think like, अच्छा यहाँ पे तो बहुत अमीर लोग आएंगे, बच्चे होंगे, everyone will be in their cars and things. I was very insecure about things, but फिर ये भी था कि I can't lose this opportunity and have to go to college. So when I went to college, I used to hide my identity. I made few friends. I used to talk to them about things, but वो हमेशा हिचक रहती थी कि नहीं नहीं इनसे कुछ बताना नहीं है. They used to ask me about my family कि अच्छा कौन है दिल्ली में, कैसे, अगर दिल्ली में हो तो हॉस्टल में क्यों रहते हो. So all these questions used to bother me, and I used to be very ashamed of myself कि मैं NGO से आती हूँ और मतलब ऐसा अगर मैं अपनी चाइल्डहुड की बात करूँगी तो दे विल जज मी, दे विल बी लाइक अच्छा ऐसे मतलब ऐसे लोगों से तो नहीं दूर रहना चाहिए ऐसा कुछ. तो आई हैड ऑल दीज इनसिक्योरिटीज़. सो या ट्रस्ट इश्यूज. तो and धीरे धीरे with the help of counseling actually I started talking about these things also, that I'm facing challenges in trusting people and making friends, although they are good friends but I can't trust them. So I started talking about these, and then they suggested me ऐसे कि अच्छा धीरे धीरे you can talk to your friends. If they are really your friends, they will not judge you or anything. So I started, like after 2 years, I talked to my friends. I told them about my my background, my story, and the fact that I come from an NGO, and the NGO is supporting with financially and everything. So they were very patient and they were very normal. So it was very it was surprising for me. I was expecting something else, like oh bichari Rekha aisa kuch, but there was nothing. They were very good with me. So I think that helped me. That helped me build strong connections, have good friends. I had 2 3 friends and they are like my family, so I'm very happy with that. Thank you.
So, Rekha, you are so confident and articulate your thoughts so well. So, what do you think helped you build this confidence?
Yeah, earlier I was not confident. I could never speak in front of so many people. I was very shy. I used to feel very inferior about myself. I used to be like, अच्छा मैं तो इतना ज़्यादा मतलब बहुत लेट स्टडी शुरू किया है. मैं अपने क्लास में भी थोड़ा बड़ी थी तो मुझे लगता था कि यार थोड़ा अलग है. तो मैं हमेशा अपने आप को बहुत क्वेश्चन करती थी कि अच्छा मैं कर सकती हूँ या नहीं. Even in interviews, I was not able to perform after the college. I was not able to perform well in interviews. I was very shocked because I was very confident कि नहीं नहीं मैं तो कर सकती हूँ. There's nothing. My friends are doing that. But I used to get numb in the interviews. मतलब silent, go silent, and I had nothing in my mind. But समझ नहीं आता कि क्या बोल रही धीरे धीरे. But I think विद कॉन्फिडेंस धीरे धीरे मैं खुद को ही एक्सेप्ट करना शुरू किया. मैंने खुद को ही ऐसे देखना शुरू किया कि आई स्टॉप सीइंग माई सेल्फ एज विक्टिम. एक्चुअली आई स्टार्टेड सीइंग माई सेल्फ एज सर्वाइवर. कि आई वॉज ए चाइल्ड, देयर वॉज नथिंग रॉन्ग, मतलब नथिंग रॉन्ग विद मी, एंड इट वॉज नॉट माई फॉल्ट वॉट हैपन विद मी. सो आई स्टार्टेड रियलाइजिंग दीज थिंग्स कि अच्छा ठीक है ये सब हुआ है बट इट्स फाइन, आई कैन like move forward with my life. So धीरे धीरे I started talking to my friends, started talking to strangers, going to events actually, and I also started doing I used to do physical activities when I was in my NGO. Like that, there are in-house karate teachers, and I also had some music teachers coming in. So I think these activities also helped me gain confidence because I was able to be in groups with people. So I think these things helped me. बाकी तो धीरे धीरे आ गया अब confidence.
So, what is one message you want to give to young people who are struggling with trauma and feeling purposeless?
I think I can, like how I started, I can suggest them to start talking about it at least. बिकॉज जब तक आप बात नहीं करोगे तो समझ नहीं आएगा. आपको बहुत लगता है कि इतना कुछ है, क्या इस सामने वाला क्या सोचेगा या मैं कैसे बात करूँगी. बट आप धीरे धीरे बात करना शुरू करते हो तो नॉर्मल होने लगती है. मैंने बात करना शुरू किया अपनी फीलिंग्स के बारे में, इन सब के बारे में, तो मुझे रियलाइज़ हुआ कि बहुत इतनी बड़ी बात वैसी थी नहीं कि लोग ऐसा सोचेंगे या ये कहेंगे या कुछ बहुत बुरा हो गया है कुछ. तो मुझे लगता है कि आप किसी से भी, अपने दोस्तों से भी बात करना शुरू कर सकते हो, या आपको लगता है कि कोई आपको प्रोफेशनल हेल्प की ज़रूरत है तो आप लो, उसमें मतलब कुछ बुराई नहीं है. अभी तो आई सी काउंसलिंग एंड दीज थिंग्स एज वेरी हेल्पफुल. मतलब मेरे लिए तो बहुत हेल्पफुल रही है बिकॉज आई हैड फेस चैलेंजेस इन सब चीज़ों में कि मैं कैसे बात करूँगी या कुछ. आई वॉज नेवर ऐसे मतलब अपने बारे में या कुछ ओपनली बात नहीं करती थी. तो मैं अंदर ही रखती थी सब कुछ कि वो चीज़ बहुत ज़्यादा फिर आपको मतलब इकट्ठा होता रहता है, बाद में कभी निकल जाए पता नहीं. ऐसा होता है पता नहीं मेरे साथ.
Thank you so much, Rekha. Thank you so much, everyone, and we hope that we'll be able to build this cross-sectoral approach across India. Thank you so much.
नमस्ते आदाब आप सभी को. I think I have here with me, my name is Rama, I represent Sneha, and I have here with me Sabreen, a young friend who has been with, we have virtually grown together over the last 7 to 8 years of our work. साबरीन को हम हमराही बुलाते हैं क्योंकि हमें अक्सर ये लगता है कि जब हम काम करते हैं और हम ऐसी बस्तियों में काम करते हैं जहाँ पर लोग दूर दराज के गांव से आकर शहरों में बसते हैं, तो शुरुआत में ही हमें लगता है कि ये समझना बहुत ज़रूरी है हम सब के लिए कि जब हम एडोलेसेंस के बारे में, when we talk about young people, we are really talking about all hues of young people. You know, across contexts, struggles, joys, geographies, gender, intersections. तो कई बार ऐसा होता है कि एक रंग से हम नहीं रंग सकते हैं हमारे हिंदुस्तान के सारे युवाओं को या एडोलेसेंट्स को. तो हम हमारा काम इस सोच के साथ ही शुरू करते हैं कि गांव, शहर, अलग अलग विभिन्नताओं से जूझते हुए जो यंग पीपल हैं उनके साथ हमारा काम है. साबरीन से आज हम थोड़ा सा सुनेंगे कि साबरीन किस तरह से अपने उम्र के यूथ के परेशानियों के बारे में अगर आप थोड़ा सा हमें बताना चाहेंगे. साबरीन, आप बहुत सारी चीज़ें कल हमें बता रहे थे, तो आपके उम्र के लोग जो ऐसी जगह पर रहते हैं जहाँ पर 10 बाई 10 के ही घर होते हैं और वहीं पर सुख दुख झगड़े सारी चीज़ें वहीं पर उन्हीं चीज़ों से जूझते हैं. कई बार तो हम ऐसे माँओं के साथ काम करते हैं जो अपने बच्चियों के साथ या बच्चों के साथ बड़े होते हैं, because they might have they were probably married when they were 15 or 16 and they might have come from one of the remotest districts in India to a city and they might not have seen the city for all you know, and they've literally grown up along with their children. So that is the context where we work. So let's hear from Sabreen.
हेलो. तो मेरा नाम साबरीन खान है और मैं स्नेहा से करीब 7 इयर्स से जुड़ी हूँ. जब मैं 11 इयर्स की थी तो स्नेहा के कुछ स्टाफ मेरे पास आए थे, तो फिर उन्होंने मुझसे बातें की. देन कुछ चीज़ों पर मेरी सेशन हुई अलग अलग टॉपिक्स पे. फिर धीरे धीरे मुझे मज़ा आने लगा, मेरा बॉन्ड बिल्ड होते गया. फिर मैंने आज तक छोड़ा ही नहीं. तो मैं आज भी मैं इनके साथ हूँ. और फिर यहाँ पे एडोलेसेंस के प्रॉब्लम्स, तो अगर हम बात करें यूथ और एडोलेसेंस की, तो इस फेज़ में हमें इतना प्रेशर हो जाता है कि हम पढ़ाई तो कर रहे हैं बट उसी के साथ साथ हमें ऐसे होता है कि हमें अपने पेरेंट्स को फाइनेंशियली हेल्प भी करना है. ऐसे हो जाता है बस अब कब तक मांगूँ मैं, अब थोड़ा तो एटलीस्ट खुद पे तो कुछ करूँ. तो इतने हम बिज़ी हो जाते हैं अपने लाइफ में कि खुद का ध्यान ही नहीं रख पाते. हम पहले तो मेरे बहुत सारे फ्रेंड्स, इनफैक्ट मैं भी, हम कॉलेज जाते हैं, देन वहाँ से आते हैं, फिर जॉब करते हैं, फिर रात में खाना खाते हैं, देन फिर सो जाते हैं. अब ये कंटिन्यूसली रिपीट होता है, डेली रूटीन हो गया है अब ये. तो ये बहुत इशू होता है. और साथ ही साथ में इस एज ग्रुप में, लाइक एडोलेसेंस के एज ग्रुप में, बॉडी में बहुत सारी चेंजेस आती हैं, फिज़िकली, इमोशनली, मेंटली, हर तरह से. तो उसको समझ पाना यही सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज हो जाता है हमारे लिए. वो चीज़ें अडॉप्ट कर पाना, वो चीज़ें समझ पाना कि चल क्या रहा है, हो क्या रहा है, ये सब चीज़ें बहुत डिफ़िकल्ट हो जाती है हमारे लिए. देन उसी के साथ साथ हमारी पढ़ाई मैनेज करना. फिर अब हमें एक प्रेशर आ गया है कि अब तो कमाना भी है, उसको मैनेज करना. देन फिर वो टॉक्सिसिटी भी थोड़ी आ जाती है, फ्रेंड्स के साथ, फैमिली के साथ थोड़ी अनबन हो जाती है. ये सारी चीज़ें बहुत ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लमेटिक हो जाती है हमारे लिए. तो ये सारी चीज़ें हैं जिससे हम ऐसे गुजरते हैं बहुत.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया साबरीन. हम ये भी बता दें कि आई थिंक वी आर डीपली कमिटेड टू mental health as a concern for social justice. It is not just about what is happening with the neurons, right? And experts, in fact, experts before all of us were called upon to this stage, have shed emphatic light on what we are talking about here. We are really talking about the social determinants of mental health, the stressors that surround mental health and well-being, and how do we move towards well-being. In fact, Dr. Shelja, I keep reading your columns and learning from them, because I'm a parent to a 14-year-old boy who is quite privileged, and yet our work makes us interact with those young people who are much more resilient, I must confess, because they are living with struggles around them. And this led Sneha to invest in developing a proof of concept to understand how a stepped care model to address mental health concerns among young people might help us learn. And that led us to understand, यहाँ पर सचिन दादा भी थे एकजुट से, तो उन्होंने जो बातचीत की कि ये सारी चीज़ें ज़ुबान से शुरू होती है, कौन से अल्फाज का इस्तेमाल किया जाता है, कौन से शब्द हम बोलते हैं जब हम मेंटल हेल्थ की बात करते हैं। तो क्या हम समझते हैं कि एडोलेसेंट्स हैं, यंग पीपल हैं, यूथ हैं, वो किस तरह से परिभाषित करते हैं मेंटल हेल्थ को, वो क्या बोलना चाहते हैं। अक्सर बम्बैया लैंग्वेज में अगर हम बोले कंटाल आ रहा है, हमको तो कई सालों तक ये नहीं मालूम था कि कंटाल आ रहा है कहाँ से, बाद में पता चला कि वो बोरियत की बात कर रहे हैं, है ना। तो कई बार हम सुनते हैं कि हम बोर हो गए हैं, हम डिप्रेशन में जा रहे हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा टेंशन आ रहा है। तो हमारा काम हमने वहाँ से शुरू किया। We started probably with deconstructing the semiotics, the language around health, well-being, etc. that surround young people. तो साबरीन, जब आप अपने बस्ती में काम करते हैं, हमें मालूम है आप बहुत सारे बच्चों के साथ, उनके माँओं के साथ ख़ास तौर पे, यहाँ पर हम माएँ इसलिए बोल रहे हैं कि हम बहुत कोशिश कर रहे हैं पिताओं के साथ काम करने के लिए, लेकिन हमसे हो नहीं पा रहा है। This is really a space for all of us to probably learn how to work better with fathers. जब हम स्कूल्स में काम करते हैं, पिता वहाँ पर आना नहीं चाहते हैं। जब हम बस्तियों में काम करते हैं, वो ये कहकर टाल देते हैं कि ये सब आप जो बात कर रहे हैं ना, ये कमज़ोरी वाली बातें हैं, है ना। So we are not very interested in this. You can talk to the mother of the child. So this has been one of our constant struggles. We might want to go away with a few tips from all of you here. लेकिन उससे पहले साबरीन से सुनते हैं कि जब आप काम करते हैं बच्चों के साथ बस्तियों में, अगर आप कोई उदाहरण देना चाहेंगे कि कैसे करते हैं, कहाँ से शुरुआत करते हैं, और उसके बाद we'll start wrapping it up as well.
तो मैंने ये बताया ही नहीं कि मैं एज अ बैरफुट काउंसलर ट्रेंड हूँ स्नेहा में। तो हम क्या करते हैं, हम अपनी बस्ती में जो बच्चे हैं, एडोलेसेंट्स हैं, उनसे बातें करते हैं, उनकी चीज़ें जानने की थोड़ी कोशिश करते हैं कि वो किस तरह से फ़ील कर रहे हैं या किस स्थिति से गुज़र रहे हैं। तो इसके हमें ना ऐसे पहले तो रैपो बिल्ड करना पड़ता है उनको जाके, बिकॉज़ पहली बार में अगर आप जाके पूछ रहे हो कि कैसे हो, क्या है, आपको हम कैसे मदद कर सकते हैं, तो कोई कुछ बताता ही नहीं, बिकॉज़ उन्हें खुद नहीं समझ में आ रहा कि वो किस फ़ेज़ से गुज़र रहे हैं। तो दे उनके दिमाग में ऐसा क्वेश्चन आ जाता है बड़ा सा कि क्या मुझे नहीं पता मुझे किस चीज़ की ज़रूरत है, बस कुछ तो हो रहा है, ऐसे हो जाता है। तो हम धीरे धीरे उनसे बातें करते हैं और हमें कुछ क्वेश्चनरीज प्रिपेयर करके दी होती है, ताकि अगर हम बच्चे हमें डायरेक्ट भी नहीं बताना चाह रहे हैं तो किस चीज़ की वजह से हम पहचान सकें कि उनके साथ हो क्या रहा है, उनके बिहेवियर से, उनकी स्टोरीज से, उनकी बॉडी लैंग्वेज से। तो ये सारी चीज़ें हैं। और इसी के साथ साथ बहुत ज़्यादा जिन बच्चों के साथ मैंने काम किया है अब तक, उनके सारे पेरेंट्स मुझ पे बहुत ज़्यादा ट्रस्ट करने लगे हैं। तो अभी कुछ भी होता है उनके साथ तो वो डायरेक्ट मेरे पास आते हैं कि देख मेरे बच्चों को कुछ तो हुआ है, वो कैसे तो बिहेव कर रही है, प्लीज़ तू जाके बात करना, तुझसे अच्छे से बात कर पाएगी या बात कर पाएगा। तो इसका एक एग्ज़ाम्पल जैसे आपने कहा, तो मैं ये देना चाहूँगी कि एक 12 या 13 ईयर्स की गर्ल है, तो उसके एग्ज़ाम्स थे, अभी की बात है, फर्स्ट यूनिट एग्ज़ाम चल रहे थे उसके। तो वो 2 सब्जेक्ट में फ़ेल हो गई तो उससे थोड़ा टफ होता है पढ़ना, बट सब सही था, खाली मैथ्स उसको बहुत हार्ड लगता है, तो फिर वो 2 सब्जेक्ट में फेल हो गई। तो व्हाट शी डिड इज़, जब उसकी मॉम मार्केट गए तो वो घर में उसने कहीं से तो सीज़र ढूँढा और उसने पूरे बाल काट लिए अपने। और उसने पूरे बाल काट लिए और पूरा बाल ज़मीन में पूरा फैले हुए हैं बाल, वो स्कूल के ड्रेस में है, उसने स्कूल का ड्रेस नहीं चेंज किया है। शी वाज़ क्राइंग टेरिबली, बहुत रो रही थी और अकेले बैठी है पूरे घर में। और बस ऐसे ही बैठी है। फिर उसकी मॉम आके डायरेक्ट उन्होंने मुझे कॉल किया। उन्होंने बोला जल्दी आ जल्दी आ। तो फिर मैं डर गई। फिर मैं गई जाके, मैंने बोला क्या हुआ? तो मैंने जब देखा तो उसने सब पूरा बाल काट के पूरे ज़मीन पे फैलाया है और बहुत रो रही है और किसी को कुछ शेयर नहीं कर रही है, कुछ नहीं बता रही है, चुपचाप बस रो जा रही है। और उसकी मम्मी डाँटने लगे उसको और चिल्ला रहे हैं और वो ऐसे बोल रहे हैं कि तुझे यही सिखाया है, ऐसे-वैसे बहुत चिल्ला रहे हैं। तो फिर तब मैंने उससे बातें की कि क्या हुआ है, बताओ क्या है? तो फिर तब उसने बताया कि मैं 2 सब्जेक्ट में फ़ेल हो गई। तो मुझे अच्छा नहीं लग रहा, इसलिए मैंने ऐसे सब कर लिया। तो तब मैंने क्या किया, हमारे पास हमारे सेंटर पे क्लिनिकल साइकोलॉजिस्ट रहते हैं। तो हम क्या करते हैं, जब कुछ बच्चे, क्योंकि हमें बैरफुट काउंसलर की तरह ट्रेन की गई है, तो हम एक पॉइंट तक बच्चों से बात कर सकते हैं, उनको समझ सकते हैं, बट जब वो ज़्यादा हाई हो जाता है तब हमें उनको क्लिनिकल साइकोलॉजिस्ट के पास रिफ़र करना होता है ताकि वो और अच्छे से उनसे बातें करें। तो तब मैं गई, तब मैंने उनसे बातें की, मैंने बोला ऐसे ऐसे है, आप प्लीज़ उनसे बात करिए। तो फिर मैंने मीटिंग अरेंज की, फिर मैं उनके वो जो बच्ची है उसको और उसकी जो मॉम है उनके पेरेंट्स को बुलाया था, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली जैसे मैम ने कहा डैड तो रेडी नहीं थे और वो बिज़ी भी थे। तो उसकी मॉम आए, फिर हमने उनसे बातें की, फिर मैंने मैम को दिया, फिर मैम उसको आगे हैंडल किया उन्होंने। तो ऐसे बहुत सारे केसेस आते हैं जहाँ पे कुछ ना कुछ बच्चे कर रहे हैं। अभी ये तो बहुत छोटा केस ही मैंने आपको बताया, बहुत बार तो वो इतने कम एज ग्रुप में वो कोशिश करते हैं कि अपने आप को हार्म करें या कुछ चोट पहुँचा लें। तो ऐसे बहुत लोगों ने ट्राई भी किया है मेरे यहाँ पे। तो तब पेरेंट्स कैसे हो जाते हैं कि वो चिल्लाने लगते हैं और इंस्टेड ऑफ उनसे बात करना, उनको समझना, वो डाँटते हैं और कि तुझे यही परवरिश दी है, ये सिखाया है, क्या कमी किया है। तो ये बहुत होता है, इसकी वजह से बच्चों के दिमाग में और प्रेशर हो जाता है कि अब तो मैं और बुरी बन गई हूँ या और बुरी बच्ची हूँ मैं। तो ये सारी चीज़ें बच्चे मुझसे आके शेयर करते हैं कि ऐसी-ऐसी चीज़ें हो रही है। तो या
थैंक यू वेरी मच साबरीन। हमें लगता है कि इसी संदेश के साथ समाप्त करना चाहते हैं। व्हेन वी वर्क विथ यंग पीपल, it's really not just about them. It is about all of us. It is about what is around them. It is about the parents, the siblings within that small house. It is about the school. In fact, there are many young people who tell us that they feel much safer and much more joyful in school than at their homes or in their communities. कई बच्चियां हमें ये कहती हैं कि जब हम घर वापस आ रहे होते हैं ना, तो हमारे पैर कांपने लगते हैं कि जब हम गलियों से गुजरते हैं हमें पता है कि कौन सी नज़र, किसकी नज़र हम पर है, कौन हमको क्या बोल रहा है. So there are so many young people whom we come across on a daily basis, and I must emphasize this, across religion, caste, and I would particularly talk about these two identities here today. We cannot maybe discount the kind of toxicity surrounding our country and our young people today, which is taking a very heavy toll on their well being. The constant narratives, our young people are definitely not away from this. We come across young people who are constantly on this. तो जिस तरह के narratives वो सुनते हैं, जिस तरह का विष पूरे समाज में, जिस तरह का जहर पूरे समाज में हमारे आसपास भरता जा रहा है, the questions of alienation, the question of तुम्हारा नाम क्या है और उसका मतलब क्या है. I'm talking about one of the very well-known international schools in Bombay, where a particular child, just because of her last name, was called a bomber. I mean, I couldn't imagine something like that. So young people around us are going through a whole lot. I might even go to the extent of saying that probably my childhood was much simpler without this. I don't know what that means to all of you. But we would end with this. और साबरीन, अगर आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे यहाँ पर मौजूद सभी को बहुत मुख्तसर, बहुत थोड़े शब्दों में, कि इतने सारे लोगों से आप क्या उम्मीद रखते हैं आप जैसे युवाओं के लिए?
तो जैसे बहुत ऐसे बातें भी हो रही थी कि हमें पूछना चाहिए कि व्हाट सपोर्ट आई कैन डू, लाइक मैं कैसे हेल्प कर सकती हूँ या सकता हूँ आपको। तो उसमें मुझे ये कहना था कि स्टार्टिंग में तो कोई भी हम कभी किसी को नहीं बताएंगे। अगर कोई बड़ा भी आके हमसे पूछेगा तो हम नहीं बताने वाले कि क्या हो रहा है, क्या चल रहा है। तो वो थोड़ा थोड़ा टाइम लगता है कि आप हमें ट्रस्ट दिलाओ, फिर हम आपको धीरे धीरे शेयर करते हैं। तो इसमें मुझे एक और चीज़ ऐड करनी थी कि जैसे हम स्नेहा से है तो हमारे यहाँ पे ना ऐसे सेल्फ केयर सेशंस होते हैं। तो एटलीस्ट वो मंथ या 2 मंथ्स में एक बार होता है जो हम एडोलेसेंस के लिए, यूथ के लिए होता है। तो अगर वैसा कुछ हम कर पाए कि ऐसे एडोलेसेंस को एक साथ इकट्ठा करके उनसे थोड़ी अच्छी से जो उनका मन है वो करने दिया जाए, उनसे थोड़ी बातें की जाए। और जैसे हमारा डांस थेरेपी था तो उसमें हमने बहुत एंजॉय किया और हम बहुत कोशिश करते हैं, अगर हमें पता भी चलता है ना कि कहीं पे ऐसे सेल्फ केयर सेशन या कुछ हो रहा है तो हम पहले भाग के जाते हैं। बस डिपेंड्स कि वो हमारे टाइम के उसमें हो, लाइक संडेज़ को हो, वीक ऑफ पे हो। तो उसमें क्या होता है कि हमें बहुत, क्योंकि हम इतने बिजी हो जाते हैं कि हमें खुद को चाहिए होता है कि कोई तो प्लीज़ हेल्प कर दे और थोड़ा ऐसे टाइम दे हमें कि हम जहाँ मस्ती कर पाए, सब कर पाए। तो अगर ऐसे कुछ हो पाए और हमें कोई ट्रस्ट दिला पाए, हमारे साथ मस्ती कर पाए तो बहुत अच्छा लगेगा हमें। थैंक यू।
Hi everyone, I'm Sonal from Youth Ki Awaaz, and this is Manya from our YK community. She's been associated with our YK platform for a while now. And extremely honored to be part of this convening today and to hear so many organizations speak about different mental health interventions that they're doing for adolescent mental health makes me very hopeful. So YK, we are an 18-year-old largest civic media platform where we have about 2 lakh young people writing on our platform every single month on issues which affect them. So their perspectives, their voices, we bring forth to everyone. And one of the things that we are seeing in the last few years is that more and more young people are writing on mental health, about mental health interventions, and about their mental health journeys as well. So their personal anecdotes, their lived experiences are coming forward more and more today. And one of the other things that we have seen is that the growing trend of AI. So, and I'm sure everyone sitting in this room at some point has spoken about AI, thought about AI, probably even reached out to AI for, emotional support, and more young people are doing that today. One of the things that we did to understand this emotional dependency on AI by young people is that we did this survey called "Are You There AI?" And we did the study with YLAC, and it was a dipstick study where we, surveyed about 2,500 young people and adolescents across the country to understand why are they depending on AI, what is this emotional support that they're seeking, and one of the things that came out was that about 53% of young people said that they were reaching out to AI for emotional support, which is a big number if you look at it. And these are people who came forward and openly, shared that. The number could be much higher. And about, 4 in 10 adolescents said that they felt unsafe and felt that they could be judged if they reached out to humans for emotional dependency and support, which they felt that AI did not do. It did not judge them. And about 17% adolescents said that they felt that schools were a safe space to talk about mental health, and which is a very small percentage if you think about it. Also, another thing that came out was that they said that, if there were more open communication at home, they would less likely resort to AI. So they felt that emotional support was not available at home. So one thing that at YK we firmly believe is that storytelling is a very powerful tool. It can be very cathartic, it can be very therapeutic, to give that safe space for somebody to just write and let it out about what they're going through. And not just writing, but also any art form, any creative space. And that's what we need more and more in schools. And more importantly than that, we need more open communication at home. We need parents to break down that wall. That onus has to be on the caregivers, not just adolescents and young people, because they're already grappling with so much. So that communication has to be open, so that even if a child feels that, at 4 a.m., if I want to talk about something, if it's bringing me down and I really need to talk to somebody, they can feel free to reach out to their parent, right? Which is what they do with AI today. So yeah, we have Manya, who I will hand it over to now, who will talk about her experience with YK, writing stories on YK, and her thoughts on AI.
Thank you for introducing me. I'm Manya Bhasin of Shivnadar School. I'm a grade 9 student. So I joined YKA a year ago, so I'm not that much of an expert yet. So I joined YKA because I did not know who to talk about my anxiety, and I thought that my friends or people around me would judge me. And I was kind of scared of that at that point. And since I was very young, I've had this talent for just writing. It's like stories, maybe poetry. So I started uploading poetry to YKA, and then I found out that there are so many other people like me who have the exact same like feelings as I do. And then I did not feel alone at all after that. And I keep posting nowadays so that I can reach out to people like me who are maybe alone and need someone to talk to. Now, Sonal ma'am had brought up AI in the conversation, and I have had this experience that some of my friends have started talking to AI to resolve their feelings or maybe talk about them because they are in fear of being judged or misjudged for that matter. So I felt a little distant from them at that point, as if I could not reach out to them or understand what they are feeling. So I really tried to help them, and finally, they did come out of that AI stage, all because of me. Now, the thing is that AI gives us so much information that you don't know what is credible and you don't know if the AI is right. And your feelings are then just misled by the AI. That's why I think that people are much, much better than AI because they can actually give you another opinion and then you know both sides of the story rather than what a bot is telling you. You don't know if that's right. So, with a person, at least you can still check if it's right or not. So, that's all, honestly.
Anything, Manya, on your thoughts about what can be done at home, maybe in terms of, having more open communication at home?
Honestly, I just think it's the key is to just come clean and talk to people that you trust, like your parents, even your grandparents to some extent, and your dogs if you have any. Rather, anyone that will listen to you, honestly, you can just talk about your feelings and they won't judge you if they actually care about you. You won't have to turn to AI. But for me, writing poetry was actually where it started because I found out that there are people like me. And then I started to talk at home because I don't know. It just came to me. Yeah. So I just thought I would feel more respected and understood when I told the truth to people who actually know me and care about me rather than writing poetry, which was also a solution. I do both now. So I'm very happy that way.
It's tough to follow that. But what we wanted to do after that, after listening to all of our partner organizations, was now turn to all of you, our member organizations who have traveled from all across the country, and just ask you. We'd love to hear from you, your reflections on adolescent mental health, some of the things that have worked for you, some of the challenges you might have encountered. And we'd love to get insights from as many of you as possible before we go to the next session, which is the last one before lunch. So if you just you can put up your hands and we'll come to you. and we'll ask you to just keep it brief, 2 minutes each, so that we can get comments from as many of you as possible. Sonali.
Thanks, Karan. It was really emotionally moving listening to all the young people in the morning, and I'm feeling very teared up, really, honestly. They were so sincere. I just wanted to add a comment. I work with Sesame Workshop. We work with really young children, and I cannot more emphasize the need to start early because signs of mental health issues and well-being start very, very early. And the biggest challenge is with caregivers and parents because they don't recognize the issues that children are going through. And many a times, parents themselves are going through real tough times and they just believe that everybody needs to toughen up. And I still remember my son was hazed when he was out of school, and he was in Sri Ram, incidentally. So he was hazed and he wanted to come home. And I got so much of feedback that, let him toughen up, he's a boy. And then my niece called me up from Calcutta and she said, Pishi, I'm Bengali. So she said, Pishi, you have to walk your talk. So I got him back, and I think I did the best thing I could because I think this whole thing of being tough and trying to be courageous is, I think, the biggest or the worst thing we teach as adults to children. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to come and really speak up of how you're feeling. So I think not being courageous is something we should talk about as well. And the only other thing I'll make, it's a little bit of a plug, but it just happened because Rama from Sneha asked about working with dads. And we at Sesame have piloted something for 5 years now in Lucknow, working with very young fathers of children who are, 4, 5-year-olds. And we were similarly worried about getting them to participate. And the two things that we learned during this journey was that we needed to take off the burden of parenthood. We needed to bring back the joy of parenthood. And we needed to make it non-judgmental. And we were able to really retain 95% of the fathers that enrolled. And actually today we are trying to scale it up. And I've worked in gender for near 20 years. And it's very tough to work with dads, and I don't think there are many programs at scale with fathers. So I think it will be something that we would love to sort of explore with this community to take forward. So thanks, Karan, and really congratulations for this effort, and so proud to be here this morning.
Thank you, Sonali.
I'm Soni Gill and I'm from Shillong. I'm from an organization called Bethany Society, which actually works primarily, one of our primary goals, target groups is persons with disabilities. And we found recently that among all people who come under the Disabilities Act and all that in India, the ones who are most marginalized are people who have psychosocial issues. So we also have we work in various areas, districts, and we have community programs. So in each of them, we have community mental health as well. Okay, but what I wanted to talk here about this, about young kids and adolescents, but I'll bring in young kids also, is that I feel that as we have an inclusive school, and we really believe inclusion is inclusion. My brother-in-law used to say that you think she believes in inclusion, she would include animals if she could into the thing also, So, yeah, inclusion of any human being. So what we have been trying to do for the past few years in the education area is that we have been trying to work with schools that are SSA schools in villages. We've done a training with them. We've got people from outside to come and do that training to ensure that they have social emotional learning as an integral part of their curriculum. Because we tend in schools to think, they'll pick it up. It is the ethos of our school. They'll pick it up. They'll learn these strengths and resilience and all this kind of thing. But often they don't. So we say that we actually have to have it as a subject which we do at least twice a week. Because we're not giving it enough importance when we say we'll include it in all our other subjects. It doesn't happen. And then teachers being teachers, we are humans also. Sometimes we do get judgmental when we're doing other subjects and all. And there are various organizations in India. The one that we have started using is one that was done by the Dalai Lama Trust that have developed fantastic hands-on, activity-based, story-based curriculum for children right from the beginning of school right up to, you're finally in the senior. And it's not just social emotional learning, it also goes to universal ethics, which is, I think if we have tried it now in about 10 schools in Jaintia Hills, pretty remote, and it's doing well. The only problem is that it's hard sometimes to convince our government departments to take it on. They're so fixated on it's a hum log ka thing hai, we will do it ourselves. But then it lands up being like our time moral science value education class, which is not enough. Which is not putting the child and the child's reality at the center, actually. That's
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Swati Rohit from Health Basics. We work in school programs in mental health counseling. We have a three-pronged approach. We work in about 44 cities with over 400 schools. So across the length and breadth of India, and also in different types of schools, government schools, affordable private schools, high-end schools. And one thing that actually a myth I busted even in my own mindset was that children have very different aspirations, right? Today, all of them are consuming the same content. So aspirations are the same, so are their insecurities. And that's something that we learned and what we'd like to see change in the ecosystem. And thank you so much for bringing this amazing, set of people together and so much learning. Is that I think there has to be a lot of education for the educators themselves and for school administrators, right? Because we've dealt with so many of them and they really don't know what mental health means, what actually counseling means, what can you expect from a counselor in a school, what should you expect a counselor to do, what children's mindsets are. So we've approached it in a three-pronged level where we work with teacher level, the whole school level, saying that preventive and everyone needs a toolkit for the different things that they're going to encounter on a day-to-day basis, and then also on an individual level. But just heartening to see that the one thing that we have going for us in India and what really supports us when they get back home, there is a sense of community. There's somebody who cares for the child, and that for me is great about India, and that's what excites me every day, that we have a chance to fix this. And thank you.
I think Dr. Ramesh, yeah, thank you.
So we worked with two kind of children. One is children of parents with mental illness. Again, two subcategories are, one group, the parent itself is a long-term service user in our own residential care setting, and the other group is a community setting. The residential setting, at least we have some, way to approach and support them. But the minute, the parent is in the community setting, working with them is always a, big challenge, because there are times that we attempt through our community mental health workers, and sometimes when the child accompanies the parent to our OP settings. But that's one important subgroup I just want to highlight. It requires in-depth, study and understanding. Yeah, thank you.
I feel that we are registered as 233 organizations at this forum, and 233 organizations dealing with a population of 140 crores. Somewhere I feel that when we talk about mental health, and especially coming to the session of adolescent health, we also need to penetrate somewhere in the system. And when I'm saying system, I'm talking about the grassroots level, starting from a basic ASHA Anganwadi worker. They may not be the counselors, they may not guide them, but at least the identification of what Sabreen is doing in the community. At least somebody should identify if there are any such kind of prevalence of such issues with any adolescent girl, boy, or even an antenatal case which Dr. Prabha talked about in the morning. So dialogues on those aspects should also, I think, we should start at some point of time by getting into the system. That's my observation. Yeah. Thank you so much.
When we're talking about adolescents, kids, teens, preteens, one of things that we have seen that has worked is using non-threatening means of communication with them. For example, games, comics, etc., etc. That works really well because firstly, it's a very bottom-up approach that we're using. We certainly don't need a trainer per se all the time when we are discussing things, when we're discussing mental health, particularly with them. And then, so using non-threatening communication materials such as games, comics, booklets also works wonder because it's kind of, they form a group and then they play together and, there's no outsider approach, there's no trainer. It's a cohort-based learning and it works really well. So that's it. And we have also, thank you to IMHA, we've also displayed a game on mental health for children outside in the patio. So
मेरा नाम विनोद बंसल है और मैं सीए हूँ और मैं अपनी एक स्टोरी आपसे शेयर करना चाहता हूँ। मेरा बेटा है 32 इयर्स ओल्ड और उसको स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया है। 10 साल से ये जो चैलेंज है मैंने इसको चैलेंज की तरह लिया और आज 10 इयर्स के बाद मुझे सक्सेस मिली। सो मैंने देखा कि अगर आप फैमिली सबसे ज़्यादा सपोर्ट करती है और अगर फैमिली सपोर्ट करे तो हम किसी भी बच्चे को इस सिचुएशन से बाहर निकाल सकते हैं। उसने DPS RK से अपना स्कूलिंग किया और उसके बाद 2011 में वो पुणे चला गया फ्लेम यूनिवर्सिटी से BBA करने। स्टार्टिंग में तो सब ठीक था लेकिन ग्रेजुअली वो उसके दोस्त कम हो गए, किसी से उसने बोलचाल बंद कर दी और जब वो 2015 में दिल्ली वापस आया तो हमें बड़ा अनयूजुअल लगा, जैसे मिरर के पीछे कोई कैमरा है या कोई पर्टिकुलर पर्सन उसको देख के स्माइल कर रहा है। तो ऐसे धीरे धीरे चला गया और हमें समझ में नहीं आया कि ये हो क्या रहा है। तो क्योंकि नॉलेज नहीं था कि स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया ऐसे होता है और उसमें ये सिचुएशन आती है, तो स्टार्टिंग में फैमिली को भी लगता है कि ये हमारे साथ क्यों हो गया। बहुत तकलीफ़ वाला काम है। आप डॉक्टर को दिखाते हैं, वो कहते हैं कि स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया है और जो मेडिसिन है वो लाइफ लॉन्ग चलने वाली है। सो बड़ा डिफ़िकल्ट था। और सब इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ ये कि 2015 में जब वो आया तो उसने इंटरनेट से खुद ही निकाल लिया कि उसके जो सिम्टम्स हैं वो स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया के हैं 2015 में। तो हमने पूछा कि ये क्या होता है, तो उसने बताया कि मुझे ये सिम्टम्स हैं और ये स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया है, इसका मुझे ट्रीटमेंट कराना होगा। तो हम दिल्ली में काफ़ी डॉक्टर्स के पास गए, उनसे हमने सलाह ली, काउंसलिंग की, लेकिन क्योंकि हमें पता नहीं था और मेडिसिन प्रॉपर नहीं चली, क्योंकि इसमें पेशेंट अल्टीमेटली मेडिसिन लेता ही नहीं है और इसमें क्योंकि उसको एनोसोगनोसिया था, एक इंसाइट ही नहीं थी कि उसको स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया है। तो इसमें 2 टाइप के पेशेंट, एक जिनको इंसाइट होता है, एक जिनको नहीं होता है। तो उसको इंसाइट नहीं था तो ही डिडंट टेक मेडिसिन, तो वर्स होता चला गया ओवर ए पीरियड ऑफ टाइम और बड़ा चैलेंजिंग रहा। हमने डॉक्टर से पूछा कि अब क्या करें कि पेशेंट तो दवाई लेता नहीं है। तो मल्टीपल टाइम ऐसा हुआ कि उसने कहा कि मैं तो घर छोड़ रहा हूँ क्योंकि मुझे बड़ा हार्म है, कोई मुझे मेरे पीछे है या फिर सन फेक है, हवा फेक है, ये सारी चीज़ें उसके दिमाग में चलती रही। मल्टीपल टाइम हमने पुलिस की हेल्प से रात को 2 बजे, 2:30 बजे, सुबह 4 बजे उसको पुलिस की हेल्प ली, 100 नंबर पे फ़ोन करके और उसको हम लोग हॉस्पिटल लेके गए। तो कम से कम 5-7 बार हुआ, 7 से 8 बार वो एडमिशन हुआ। तो मैसेज ये है कि फैमिली को पूरा उसका साथ देना चाहिए बच्चे का, बिल्कुल हार नहीं माननी चाहिए और अल्टीमेटली आप अगर उसकी हेल्प करेंगे तो वो इस गेम में दोबारा आएगा लाइफ के और सारी प्रॉब्लम ठीक होंगी. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. Thank you.
I think with all the conversations, there are multiple thoughts right now in my mind. But one thing that I feel like sharing when we are talking about adolescent mental health is that we need to look from a very holistic perspective, and it is coming from our own experiences, our own work that we have been doing in the field. When we are talking about mitigating the impact of adverse childhood experiences for adolescent mental health, what we keep forgetting is that the parents, the caregivers of these children, especially of those children who are at the margins, these parents are already living the outcomes of adverse childhood experiences. So their outcomes are going to further become the adverse childhood experiences for the next generation. So we need to work with parents and caregivers also. And I think the journey has been beautiful in that way when we are working with mothers, providing them with resources to understand their emotions better and intervene at that point. I think they keep on sharing things like that. They are able to understand their anger better. They pause, they reflect, and their relationship with their children has improved. So I think that's what I want to share, that, we need to talk about all the stakeholders involved in adolescent mental health while taking in a systemic approach also, but also working with, I think, parents and caregivers, because they are also the survivors of adverse childhood experiences.
We are the cross disability organization working on policy advocacy for and inclusion for persons with disabilities. So in my in my personal experience also, I got diagnosed with ADHD later in life, and while at work also we advocate for the concept of universal design, which is about, rather than making public spaces or infrastructure accessible, especially for persons with disabilities, you just include accessibility as part of the blueprint itself. So similar to my experiences, I feel like when I think back, and the whatever others also spoke about, how there's such a culture of discipline where, it's easier to shout or scare a child into being disciplined or behaving in a in an acceptable way, rather than using non-threatening modes of communication or providing accessible materials to children so that they're able to understand and not feel inadequate. Just the toll of having to act in a way that is acceptable, the toll of not receiving the support that is required by them. I think schools and caregivers also need to understand that these are not problems that are outside their doorsteps. Like, any child can be neurodivergent or be struggling with mental health issues at any point in their life. And I think that is definitely something schools especially need to take into account more.
This is Suraj from Center for Women and Girls, Manipur. I just want to put a spotlight on the context that we work in with adolescent. Three broad characteristics which may help you paint a picture of what geographies we work in. So we are at the border of Burma, and one thing which often gets neglected in talking about mental health is the geography. Geographies, be it in urban areas, the ghettos, the slums, or the geographies of India, be it the 8 neglected states of Northeast or the Jammu and Kashmir, and so on and so forth. So one is the geography, the neglect that, and the structural neglect that such neglected geographies face, how it impacts on the mental health. So one was that. The second is intergenerational exposure to state violence and armed violence has put a dent, has made difficult to for people to come out of it. And one thing which often leads to after armed or structural violence is hyper masculinization. You have to build your own, masculinity to fight the masculinity of the state, right? So that is the second thing. And the third thing that, so this is the context that we are working in. And the third is the tribes or the communities that we work with are extreme, their population is small. They are actually also endangered tribes. The smallest tribe that we work with, the youths that we work with, their population is only 850. The tribe's name is Tarao, and they have not more than 4 villages. That's their, yeah.
Working at the intersection of education, being a psychotherapist myself, there's something, so Dream Dream particularly briefly about the organization works particularly with young people from adverse childhood experiences, empowering them with life skills so that they can thrive. And the other area is around systemic change, reimagine the purpose of the education itself so that the youth can thrive in their respective spaces. There's one idea that I would just like to seed, particularly at the intersection of the education and mental health. The systemic inequities is something that's continuing to exist because of the privilege and power we hold. So I think when we are also, and in that perpetuation, there are certain identities that are left behind. And those identities who are actually left behind are suffering with mental health issues. So I think the invitation for me would be in the way we reimagine the definitions of the success that are being perpetuated because it works for privilege. In the way we are seeding in ideas around within the education space also, what does success mean? What is my power and privilege? So unpacking my own power and privilege, because I may be perpetuating taking certain decisions because it works for me, and very unconsciously being blinded by certain identities. So just that perpetuation and invitation for unpacking our own identities and where I come from, and in the way I may be perpetuating mental health concerns. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Pausa. I'm from Medicine Sans Frontiers, also known as Doctor Without Borders. Today, I wanted to share some of the challenges and the experiences that we have in our project. So in India, we have projects in Patna, Bihar, in Manipur, in Bijapur, in Chhattisgarh, as well as in Kashmir. I'm really happy to have all the team members here, all the experts, and in this convening, I wanted to highlight, especially for one vulnerable community that we serve, that is the PLHID community. We have significant, we have worked in Manipur and Patna for considerable amount of time already. But as recently, a few months back, we were surprised that pregnant women were still denied care in some of the MOH facility. So I wanted to highlight this challenge that the pregnant women are still facing in some of the MOH facility, and also regarding the adolescent group, they are really struggling, especially when we talk about adherence treatment. The adolescent groups are the ones particularly affected. So they are in treatment, but once they reach the adolescent group, their adherence really comes down. And also wanted to add our challenges that we are facing in Kashmir. So in Kashmir, we did a mental health assessment, mental health survey in 2015 with Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, which highlighted the significant distress. Around 45% of the adult population were facing significant mental health distress. And here, my friend Suraj, he highlighted about the marginalized and the population which are a bit neglected in the peripheral areas. I also would like to encourage our STEM members here. While we talk about decentralization of our services in the MOH as well as our facilities, I would also encourage to look into areas like in Kashmir. We are talking about community resilience. We look forward to collaborating with any other NGOs that are working in this field. Thank you.
I think I really resonated with some of the sessions which just took place where there were young adults talking about life on campus. So this is an engineering university, and I just wanted to share, I think whenever I'm interacting with students on campus, the first thing I ask them is, have you shared this with your parents? And most of them say no because of two reasons. One, that we are scared of their emotional reaction. And secondly, it just becomes more about them. Then we are sorting their issues more than what we came to them for. So I think the two things which we are trying to do, and I think that's a challenge, and I think I would really like to us to speak a little bit more about that at some point. One is, I think we all need to understand that I think the onus of entering the child's world lies on us, whether it's a young adult, whether it's a child. And secondly, I think we also need to increase the number of trusted adults on campus and outside campus, because that's a challenge which we, I think, are also facing, because the need of the student to go ahead and the feeling that, okay, I can knock on this door and I can talk to this person. It does not have to be a counselor, a therapist. It could be a faculty member. It could be a coach. It could be just anybody, but just the feeling there. Thank you. Thank you so much for this session. Really enjoying it.
I am Bhushan Girase. I am from PATH. At PATH, PATH is known for its system strengthening work with innovation and human-centered approach. With the same approach, we started integrating mental health services into the primary care of Indian healthcare system. And now, with the same approach, with the learnings of that across 10 states in India, now we are in Karnataka, focusing youth mental health project again through the system strengthening approach. Someone was telling that early identification, the early support can be possible at the community level from the frontline workers like ASHA and so many others. But it is not just the health department who are there as the gatekeeper or the platforms for catering the services. Mental health is intersectoral. Development is incomplete without mental health, and when we say that, it is cross-sectoral. And that is why it is not just health department. We also need to think of so many other departments who are running their own schemes and initiative, not just education, women and child development, youth empowerment, so many welfare sectors. They are conducting their own programs and schemes, and they are also having their own gatekeepers in the community who can also be used as a potential power and opportunity to shift the task. We can train them with some basic minimal competencies with which they can go in their own field and can identify the cases, particularly young people in the community. And it will just be a matter of establishing a referral linkages all across sector. And that is what we are doing in Karnataka with the support of Indira Foundation. I just want to pass this thought so that a cross-sectoral collaboration can be visible with shared knowledge and resources. Thank you.
I just wanted to talk about two things that we are doing. We are a team of more than 700 psychologists and psychiatrists and community workers working across pan-India. But I want to talk about two initiatives that we have taken. One with the schools. We were just talking about adolescent and youth mental health. With schools, of course, there's a mental health curriculum that we have developed, which is called Minds Matter, and we are currently working with 65 plus schools pan-India in 12 different states. We also are the licensed provider of Mental Health First Aid International, through which we have two programs through which we are going to, for peer support. One is Teen Mental Health First Aid and the other one is Youth Mental Health First Aid. One of our initiatives is COPE, which is Counseling and Outreach for Peer Empowerment, through which we are working with 70 plus colleges again, where we are equipping them with a toolkit where they can recognize, respond and refer and become trained first aiders to provide peer support. These are the initiatives that we have taken, and we are working across stakeholders to provide and strengthen the capacity, building capacities with teens and with youth so that they can provide peer support and peer empowerment. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Before I get into my organization, I would really love to request all of you. There are so many organizations here. This is a very small practice where everybody introduce themselves with their pronouns so that we go beyond the binary gender that is there in the society at a large. So I'm representing Prantakata. Prantakata is a West Bengal based organization working for youth leadership and also working with other marginalized community to give them a dignified way of living. Just to put in place for when we are talking about mental health and especially for the people coming from gender and sexual minorities, it is now very, very important at the moment that the trauma informed care, or like the way to look into the traumas of the people who are coming from such backgrounds, such some extra efforts needs to be done because traumas are structural. We are talking about power, we are talking about privileges. It is very important that certain knots needs to be entangled, or it needs to be sorted. One size cannot fit all, so a lot of back and forth need to be done. It cannot be looked from a unidimensional way that everybody's trauma is similar. And especially when we talk about, say, LGBTQI plus community, in the caregiving, a lot of times different things comes on the surface which leads to previous trauma getting triggered. So all the practitioners needs to be capacitated in a way that they understand that these are things that gonna come in their way, and that shift in the lens is very much important. And Prantakatha would love to kind of facilitate this entire conversation because I know it's a long process, but it's very, very important. So yes, would love to connect with people who think in a similar manner. Thank you.
I'm Vandana Bedi from Basic Needs India. Basic Needs India works with people with mental illness in rural areas in a few states in India. And it follows the model of community-based mental health and development. I have a suggestion. Listening to all of you, and some of the things stand out for me. You were saying, the problem lies in the social milieu of our, country. Person over there was saying that how do we get into system? And that's what I feel, that there is such a rich resource here. So many approaches, different organizations have followed, are successful in that. But they are in small pockets of India and they are individualized. Can this alliance become a platform where together, and you were saying that, we have such good idea, but the government doesn't listen to it. Can this platform become a platform, this alliance can become a platform where we strongly advocate with state and central governments to bring these aspects into the system, to change for children, for adolescents, for people with mental illness, for other issues, LGBTQ, other marginalized groups. The change has to come at training level of human resource in various fields. Change has to come at policy level, central policy level, state policy level, budget allocations. Change has to come in human resource working in this, in these areas. All organizations are not as, enlightened or as progressive in the disability field or mental health field or, other fields as some of you are. So change has to come over there also. It will not come unless we utilize government systems. For mental health, there is national mental health policy, district mental health policy. For schools, there is now national education policy that has come up. And there are many stakeholders. There are family, now BNI follows, in Odisha, it's trying to change the system at state level. And it has followed a process. It's 4 years now, and we have reached some stage. Latest, we had a meeting with the health minister and all the health officials of the state. So that's just one example in one state. But can we together become an advocacy group where we develop a strategy? We'll have to get together and develop a strategy and methodology where we work towards getting into the systems and bringing systemic change. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arun Zungla. I'm from Nagaland, from an organization, non-profit organization called Sisterhood Network. We work on gender equality, women and girls rights. Just briefly on 3 pointers. As a indigenous people from Nagaland, Northeast India, we have a culture of oral tradition, and we work at the grassroots level. And as we work with women and girls, we also work with adolescents. And one thing that really works and I've heard the panelists talk about building trust, and that is so very important for them to open up. And one thing that we do is storytelling, and we gather around and we do this practice of storytelling. And initially we would not go head on and ask them to tell their stories, but we bring out characters in a story. We make up stories, short stories, and about just struggles of youth, and with the different name characters, and we reflect on it. And as we reflect, it brings up their personal, slowly and steadily it brings up their own issues. And that's how we create a safe space through storytelling. The second thing is I'm thank you to my fellow brother for bringing up the context, because as Northeast, as Nagaland, with 7 decades of conflict, and as non-profit, we are also frontline responders. We are secondary trauma receivers, because if the women and girls come to us, we need to respond. We cannot just leave like that. So, and also we have conflict and we need to respond. So as secondary trauma responders, we also face burnout. And so if any institutions or organizations, if you see your colleagues or your team members lacking behind or missing deadlines of their deadlines, we have deadlines. Procrastination is also an issue of mental health that we need to have conversation. I think what we can do is not judging the colleagues or judging the person, but asking, are you okay? How can we create a safe space in our environment as team members, instead of judging and saying, oh, you're missing this, but also asking, are you okay? That's one thing that we need to have conversation on. And lastly, we work a lot on violence against women. The conversation on how to dismantle patriarchal norms is a big thing that we need to talk about, because we know during COVID how violence against women escalated as women were behind closed doors. It happened even in our communities, and we did several datas where comparing to COVID and until now it's increasing. And especially it's alarming that violence against women and girls are happening at home. It is a data that we as nonprofit we had done, and I'm not just making this up, but it is escalating. So the first step to that is counseling. And with nonprofit, just a little bit, nonprofit is underfunded, and sometimes they need serious counseling, clinical intervention, and nonprofit is underfunded. Us colleagues, ourselves, we used to collect money so that we can help these women, because most of them come from financially insecure backgrounds. And so how does solidarity translate? There is a big need for solidarity on mental health and to stand with each other. And as humankinds, that is non-negotiable. Thank you.
for me, this has been one of the most fulfilling and enriching sessions that I've attended in a long, long time. So thank you very much for your participation. For me, what stood out the most, of course, was the young people coming up on stage and sharing their stories in the most intimate ways, in the most honest ways. And I'm going to very quickly reflect on some of the things they brought up. They talked about how young people feel helpless, powerless, and judged by adults, even when the adults come from a space of wanting to help. It doesn't quite get there, right? And they want to create and nurture spaces that give them agency and an emotionally safe space. We also heard about barefoot counselors, Sukhu Dukhu Sathis, who are resource people, young people who go out into the community as resource people. And that again brings back the developmental or the evolutionary model of mental health that we were talking about right in the beginning, that we need to focus on that. I mean, it's so important, of course, to kind of make the more professional spaces, the biomedical spaces as well, cleaner perhaps. But on the other hand, what is coming through is a wide variety of geographical, cultural and intersectoral spaces that we can influence. And that's what came through with the sharing that we heard from so many of you, and such creative ways of dealing with things. So again, the message that we are getting or taking out from here is that then doesn't need to be a single model. You know, all of you, with support from each other, can build and create models for yourselves in your own geographical, cultural, and need-based way in your own spaces. And a very refreshing thing was that most of you who stood up and spoke were inviting other people to come and collaborate. And that is indeed the purpose of this convening, of coming together and supporting each other and having conversations ongoing. That is the best outcome that we could have hoped for. And we hope that this will continue in the same spirit, in the same way, and the openness and honesty with which we have spoken. Thank you so much.